It's time for TigerNet Talk with L. Swan.
That's why Carolina's in Chapel Hill and USC's in California. And the university in this state always has been, always will be, Clemson. Print that, tweet that.
And I hope they come in undefeated. That's what I told you before the game. Our team believes. Our team believes. They got heart. We got greatness in us. They say we can't do it. What they say now?
Down go the champs. Auburn's 17-game win streak comes to an end.
Welcome back, everybody, into another edition of TigerNet Talk. I'm your host, Lawton Swan. Glad to be here with you. TigerNet Talk, episode number 163. And as you can tell, if you're watching the live program on Spreecast, we have moved the camera just a little bit, but not too much, just a slight shift. And I'm letting everybody know that we are live right now on TigerNet and as well on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Putting that out on Twitter right now. Almost said that we are lice. We are not lice, but I guess we could be a little like lice to some people because maybe we are nagging. We always return. You just can't get rid of us no matter what you do. Clemson Sports Talk, and most importantly, TigerNet Talk right here for you each and every Wednesday. And we're going to have a little bit of a scheduling conflict because of the holidays. We've already got a lot of great people in the chat room. Appreciate them stopping by, and I hope to have more coming into the program. And I was looking at the numbers on Spreecast. You know, when we were over at Vocal doing the show, we were the number one rated program, and people are saying, there were other people who were competing against us saying, how are you getting to the top? How are you getting to the top? And you would look at the number of people who we'd have watching the show live and then compare that to what we were putting up at the end. I think I saw close to 9,000 views of the program on TigerNet this week on last week's program. That's fantastic. I mean, you start looking at the numbers on Spreecast. They don't have a ranking system, but you guys are really helping us push to the top. Of course, with the holidays upon us, we're going to have to move the show back to the 27th next week. So we're going to record our LSU Clemson Bowl preview show on the 27th of December. That's Thursday night, 9 o'clock. I know it's going to be rough because so many of you are going to be out traveling and handling things for the holidays, and I know that it's fun to spend time with your family and friends and getting that opportunity to reflect on the year that was, and that's exactly what we're actually going to do on the program tonight. We're going to take a look at the season that was, talk about our best offensive moments, our best defensive moments from the entire year, and I know you've got your own. I'll be trying to keep up with the chat room while we roll along because I want to make sure that we hear from them as well, but make a little tweak to your schedule. We'll put it in on Spreecast with the update that we are going to record the show on Thursday night. That's going to give you an extra day after Christmas. Enjoy that downtime with your family and opening the presents and getting everything out of your stocking because I know all our listeners have been, they're on the good list. I certainly hope that you are on the good list. You're on my good list because you're tuning in with us. Here is how you take part in the program. Hashtag TN Talk, all one word together. If you know about hashtags, they are everywhere. Put it in there. It comes to us live right here on the Twitter screen. We've also got the ability to look at it in the chat room. You can chat with us. I see Craig's already dropped a question in the chat room. We'll get to that question momentarily, Craig, so don't get rid of it. There's a way to share on Facebook. This is the user interactive nature that Spreecast allows us, and plus all the information at the bottom. A little blurry, but not awful, not like it was at Vocal. You can email us clemson81@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at Clemson Sports. We bring you Clemson news, notes, and information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. While you sleep, we tweet. That's the way it rolls all the time. But let's start with the good news, and that is that recruiting has hit the dead period. Thank goodness. My gracious. You guys remember a few years ago, you'd come to me, you'd say, Swanee, we want to know about this recruit. We want to know what you're hearing here, here, and there. And I'd say, guys, look, recruiting is not my forte. It's not what I prefer to get involved with because it's so up and down, and players now with social media, with Facebook, Twitter, having that open microphone all the time to change the way they feel about things, to change the way they're viewing their future. And even now with a dead period where the coaches can't contact these players, the players can continually put out things and tweets and say maybe they're going here, maybe they've changed their mind, they're a lean towards the SEC. And we talked about DeMarcus Robinson last week and the fact that he said that he felt like he was better off playing in the SEC for what they would bring to the table as a conference for him as he committed to Florida. But it wasn't but 5 days later, DeMarcus Robinson, just before the dead period, recommits to Clemson. And that's a good thing because, as we told you before, he is going to be an early enrollee. And the dead period is there. So you would assume, barring some unforeseen contact from Florida, that Clemson's going to land DeMarcus Robinson. A bit of a surprise for me after that late switch. I think that he's got a lot of ability. I know some people have likened him to maybe a Sammy Watkins, and Sammy Watkins is a generational player, but he is going to be, and right now you could argue he is the best offensive weapon we have in this recruiting class. So that's good news. That's the good side of things, something we left you with as bad news in the final moments of the program last week. Just that in that short amount of time, flip-flops around, and now your Clemson Tigers have this 4-star guy in. And hopefully that's helped some of you with the belief that maybe, or at least the faith in a guy like Robert Kimdichie. I've been of the same, I've held the same standard the entire time with Kimdichie, and that is that Robert Kimdichie, because we haven't heard him say I'm not coming to Clemson, still has a big opportunity and most likely will end up a Clemson Tiger in my mind. Now, I don't have that from Kimdichie or anybody close to him, but when we've talked to our people at Ole Miss, we've constantly heard it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and it hasn't happened yet. And when things broke off between Kimdichie and Clemson, what we gathered was that this was a mutual agreement to let Robert explore. Clemson wasn't going to be hounded on him, and I kind of equate it to, and I thought about like a sore, something that bothers you over and over. If you've ever had a sore inside of your mouth or somewhere and you just keep picking at it, you just keep nagging at it. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution was consistently nagging and picking and going after Robert. We're hearing this, we're hearing that. And finally, Robert had had enough. And I don't blame him. If you're the number one recruit in the country and you've had other guys out there who have been the number one recruits in the past, like Jadeveon Clowney, like Dorrell Green Beckham at Missouri, who had a chance, and Beckham committed but to Missouri, but it didn't seem like it was such a saga. I think everybody kind of knew that's exactly where he was going to go. But when you look at Kimdichie, he didn't get a chance to really get out there as the number one guy, a spot he earned, to take visits. It was a little bit of an early commitment. You've got mom trying to push him one direction and the kid trying to make a decision for himself. And you can argue who's making the better choice. You can say, well, he needs to stand up and be a man and do what he wants to do. Or you can say, you know what, he needs to be a good son and follow the wishes of his parents, stay where his brother is. There is no right or wrong decision for this guy as he is the number one recruit in the country. But I hope your faith is renewed in the fact that things aren't over for Clemson in this situation. And with Kimdichie naming a top 4, Clemson being in the mix, 2 teams in Alabama and LSU that I don't think many of you feel like are real threats. Now, word came out that maybe he was a silent commit at one time to LSU before committing to Clemson. But there's one thing that you do have, and that is he has only been committed to one school this year, and that is the Clemson Tigers. So I'm still hopeful there, and I'm standing by what I've said all along. Until Robert says, I'm not going to Clemson, I'm going elsewhere, I'm saying Clemson's right there in the mix, and in my mind has the best chance to land this guy. And you talk about the other players that are out there, the Carl Lawsons of the world, the Montravius Adams of the world, getting those guys into this system, improving a defense that when you look at the numbers wasn't that much better than what we put out on the field last year, and against the pass it was even worse. But you still, I think, saw the development and the improvement that Brent Venables made in this team. And while there's disappointment in the secondary and the lack of the lack of plays that were made, and I don't necessarily mean interceptions, but I just mean plays on the ball, making catches tough on receivers instead of guys running free in the secondary. Some of that was the safeties having bad angles. We've talked about that before in the past. Some of that, too, was the cornerbacks just not being game-prepared. Injuries, I think, hurt them a lot in the development of the players. That's why this defensive back coach hire will be such an important thing for Clemson. But a guy like Adrian Primetime Baker is another example of a guy who decommitted from FSU. All of a sudden, Clemson's got a shot maybe at him as well. You look to the to the guys that you're trying to bring in there, Mackenzie Alexander, you can go on and on, there is a significant amount of talent on the defensive side of the ball that Clemson is trying to land this year, because I believe, much like you do, that we saw Brent Venables simplify things a little bit, and even though people still talk about maybe it was complicated, I didn't see the issues that I saw last year with Kevin Steele's defense and players looking lost before the play. If anything, maybe a lack of a true pass rush up front really hurt the back end, and also technique. And that's why I think, again, that coaching hire is going to be big. But we've got a whole lot to get to here on the program, because we got to go through the best plays of the year offensively and defensively. We've got folks in the chat room with us, and I appreciate everybody being here. Remember, TigerNet Talk next week, Thursday, the 27th at 9 o'clock. The holidays call. We'll be back right after this.
Yeah, boy, we so tough. Can't you tell that we ballin'? And these boys can't hold us back. 81 championship, and best believe we going back. Clemson, we all in. One team with one dream.
We're on the quest for the best, and we can't let anything hold us back.
These boys can't hold us back. These boys can't hold us back.
Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444. or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/Seasons by the Lake. I hope to see you on the terrace.
We scoop the boot, dutycalls.com. When nobody else will do it, dutycalls.com. To make that dog poop go away, call or click for a free quote today.
When nature calls, we answer. To get a free quote for dog poop removal, go to dutycalls.com now.
DOODYCALLS. Dutycalls.com.
In the Midlands area, dial 1-800-DUTY-CALLS. They're number 1 and number 2. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove. Are you a landowner who owns more than 10 acres that's interested in selling timber or pulpwood off your property? Cross Creek Timber is a full-service timber procurement company that buys standing saw timber and pulpwood. They're staffed with professional licensed foresters and fully insured with both workers' comp and general liability insurance. Let Cross Creek Timber develop the appropriate harvesting plan for your property and answer any questions regarding forest management. Call today, 864-517-3620. That's 864-517-3620 for your free woodland evaluation, or visit www.crosscreektimber.com.
I thought I'd grow up and I'd settle down, but there was 10,000 girls up in Tiger Town, and it was heaven to me. I used to sneak downtown with my fake ID and watch Doug McCormick rock TDs.
Welcome back into TigerNet Talk, and people in the chat room asking me about the Clemson Tiger basketball game from earlier this evening. Ugly. I'm telling you what, we're going to save that for the last segment. 23-point loss by the Clemson Tigers, the worst loss under Coach Brad Brownell in his history at Clemson. But the problem is that you lose to Coastal Carolina, and that just doesn't sit well with people, especially when the guy sitting on the bench at Coastal, you could argue, was maybe the best coach you've had at Clemson in terms of what he did there, Cliff Ellis. coaching there at Coastal Carolina. I mean, we can look at the Rick Barnes years. We can talk about the job that Oliver Purnell did in building that program. And I think you could say that if you're talking about pure coaching, what Brad Brownell has been able to do with the talent he has, it has been pretty amazing. But this loss, I know you're playing in a bandbox over there in Myrtle Beach. I know it's a tight confine of a venue, an old school venue. Almost reminds you of the old Fike, the original gym where Clemson played. And I don't mean the big new stuff that they've added and what we played in when I was in college there, but the old, I forget what you call the room over there at Fike. It was the old hardwood floor gymnasium where Clemson used to play many moons ago. That's kind of what it felt like seeing that game. But definitely not Clemson's best performance. They fall to 6-4. We'll briefly get to that. There's some things that I really like still, though, about this team and some things we've seen. But we're going to talk now about a reflective look at the 2012 season. Obviously, we've still got another game remaining against LSU, and it would be nice if I could have to redo this show because we have so many great plays against the Tigers from down there on the Bayou that I have to completely wipe out everything that I'm about to say here because of just how good we play in this bowl game. And in fact, we'll talk now about Craig's question in the chat room. Craig wants to know, what are my thoughts on our chances against LSU? Are we really going to make a statement this year? Or are we going to be the butt of jokes from ESPN for the next year? Well, I'm going to say this, Craig. I am going to give my prediction on Thursday night, this coming Thursday, at 9 o'clock on that program at the end. Right around 10, we'll be giving our prediction out for the Chick-fil-A Bowl. My concern right now with Clemson going into this game at this point, as we still have a little while to kind of digest it and look into everything, is the fact that, and I'm going to hold by this, and that is when Clemson has gone up against this season SEC defenses in Auburn and South Carolina, you have had very underwhelming performances. And the problem I have with that is that LSU is a smash-mouth football team. They are what has become in some ways a rare breed in that they can run the football right down your throats. They are not the best passing team in America by any means. They don't have unbelievable offensive weapons on the edge. They just line up and smash you right in the mouth. And and that's not to say that Clemson's defense can adjust and make plays in that regard. But if we do have to commit so much to stopping the run, if we can't get them into third and long situations, get them playing behind the sticks on third down, it's going to be a long day for Clemson. Because if we do start to commit to the run, to stopping the run, then all of a sudden their lack of weapons, and that's not to say that Odell Beckham Jr. isn't one of the better wide receivers in the country. I think he clearly is. But all of a sudden those guys get that much better. And their opportunities against the secondary in Clemson that have struggled this year, as we've already talked about, are enhanced even further. So all of a sudden, what is not exactly their strength becomes something they can go to fairly comfortably because the matchups are there. And on the flip side of things, South Carolina's defense was able to get to Taj Boyd. And we can say that from the second quarter on in that ball game, maybe Clemson didn't have their rhythm at any point. But Clemson continually was getting into third down and long situations where South Carolina could tee off on them. And we could argue semantics. Did the 4.5 sacks by Jadeveon Clowney come from the fact that he is, in my mind, look, you guys don't like it. I know it. It's been chatter. Clowney said he wants to win the Heisman next year. People laughed about it. I still think he's the best player in college football this season. I think he'll be the best player in college football next season. I don't think there's any denying the kid's skill set. You can hate him for being at Carolina if you want to. You can't deny his skill set. David in the chat room says, "Don't say it, Swan." The truth hurts. And the truth is that if he's at Clemson, it's a totally different defensive front for the Tigers too. And that there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that fact. And that's one thing that's kind of bothered me a little bit, is that people seem to have a problem with acknowledging that fact. But to be honest with you, I don't see why it's so difficult for people to understand how good this kid really is. Just how good he has become. And after last year, where I think he underperformed for a lot of people as a freshman, he really did improve this season. And if he says, I want to come back and be the best player in college football, I want to get to the Heisman, I don't know why people would deny the fact that he has the opportunity. He will be playing in the best league. He will be playing against some of the best competition out there, some of the best the best offensive lines in America. And if he can do it, my gracious, guys, if you can't look at him and see what that kid is,
you can't handle the truth.
You can't, because the truth is he is the best player in college football. Hate me all you want. Send your emails. Tweet to me. He is. But when you look at what happened, whether you say it's because he's a beast or because of the coverage sacks, whatever, Clemson's going to be going up against Barkevious Mingo, Sam Montgomery, the defensive front for LSU that can cause that same havoc for Clemson if there's pressure from the corners at the line of scrimmage. And I've said before, I don't think you scheme to beat Clemson by trying to stop Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins. I think what you really try to do is get pressure on Taj Boyd, but the initial part of that starts with what you do at the line of scrimmage against those wide receivers, and if you can disrupt their routes and timing. And I think against South Carolina, we didn't see those same screens that we had seen before. And we may have felt like there was an opportunity there that went to waste because South Carolina was able to stay on the field. But either way, when you look at it, that Clemson offense didn't look the same against South Carolina that we saw the rest of the year for the most part. And I know you had those opening game jitters against Auburn, but it didn't look exactly the same there either. Abandoning the run was an issue against South Carolina, but more importantly, just not being in a rhythm and a flow. That would be my main concern. So I don't think we'll be the butt of the jokes, and I really don't believe you're going to see an LSU team that's going to come in and put up 70 points against Clemson. But if your question is, does LSU 9 times out of well, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10. 7 times out of 10 probably win this game? Yes, I think so. 7, maybe even 8 times out of 10. LSU is the better team coming into this game. They have played a tougher schedule. They're the only team in America, in my mind, that's pushed Alabama to the brink. Now, you can tell me Texas A&M beat Alabama, Swan. I know, but when I'm talking about the teams who are at the top each and every year, LSU's in the mix for the national championship. And that's why this is such a big game, because I don't think they're a 10 out of 10 team. I don't think they're going to beat you 10 times out of 10. What you got to do is make sure that this time when you walk into Atlanta, going up against a team that's 10-1, you make it one of those 3 or 4 times out of 10 that you could win this game. You can't afford to go in there and not play the best you have played this season. That's what it's going to take to beat this ball club. And that's the facts. Craig, great question, though, man. I tell you what, I love that question. All right, let's talk about this season and the moments that made it what it was for you as a fan. So much of this year will ride on, I think, what happens in this matchup against LSU, though. Because much like the South Carolina game, you want to go out with a win. And since you couldn't do it in the regular season, you got to do it in the postseason. And the last Clemson win in the postseason was in 2009 in the Music City Bowl against Kentucky, a 21-13 victory. Now, 50 years before that 2009 game, Clemson played LSU in the Sugar Bowl, 1959. The Tigers lost 7-0. That LSU team was coached by a 34-year-old Paul Dietzel, who would go on to coach at South Carolina. Dietzel, at 34, just older than Danny Ford was when he won the national title. That game ended up being a national championship game for LSU. The odd thing about it, contrast the styles, here's a little nugget from that game. Down 7-0 in the fourth quarter, Clemson gets the ball at their own 17-yard line and runs 17 plays until they turn the ball over on downs at the 28-yard line, at the LSU 28. Think about that for a minute. This is a team that plays this year. 17 plays, we might score 4 touchdowns with 17 plays. In 17 plays, they only went from the 17 to the 28-yard line on the other side of the 50. Change of football for sure. But the last time these two teams got together was in the Peach Bowl back in 1996. 10-7 was the final in that one for LSU. But what led us here? Our special teams play of the year. Couldn't be a kickoff return. Couldn't really be a punt return. Those were pretty much non-factors for us coming into this season. The amazing thing, though, I think, was Chandler Catanzaro and his dependability the entire season. A streak of 20 consecutive made field goals was snapped against Wake Forest back in October. Oddly enough, that streak began against Wake Forest back in 2011. Right now, Catanzaro is 16-17 on the season and made 25 of his last 26 field goals. But for me, the special teams play of the year, Spencer Benton's 61-yard kick against Ball State for an ACC record for distance in that game. Now, the thing for Benton, though, he kind of had a free attempt at it when you think about it because it was before the half, and it's a little bit easier to kick that football when there's 3 seconds remaining before the half instead of 3 seconds remaining until the end of a game in a game that might mean something. But for Benton to set that ACC record, that the ACC's been in existence since the 1953, that's a big deal. That's my special teams play of the year. Craig says, yep, that was awesome. And I've never seen a kick that far in my life. The only other time I've seen anything similar to that was on television, and it was Clemson in Georgia. And I can't remember who did what first, but Donald Ikwe kicked one way with, I believe, maybe 8 or 9 seconds on the clock from like 65 yards. And then Kevin Butler had a chance with like 3 seconds left to fire one the other way from like 62 yards or something ridiculous. David wants to know, why can't we kick it out of the end zone consistently? That is a true mystery. And I thought for a while, I was like, it must be the wind. Maybe we just happen to be kicking against the wind. But then South Carolina would kick it in the same direction right out of the back of the end zone. I don't know if it's technique, form, what. They moved it up. It should be done, David. I got to agree. That if I was given my most disappointing thing for special teams this year, that would be it. Not being able to kick the ball consistently out of the back of the end zone. How about the pass of the year? What was it for me? How about Taj Boyd's perfect pass to open up the scoring down at Florida State? A 60-yard play on 3rd and 7 in the first quarter with 13:34 left on the clock in the first quarter. Taj Boyd hitting DeAndre Hopkins in stride and really stunning an LSU crowd. A crowd that hadn't seen the team punch the ball in the end zone. They just couldn't believe what hit them. Everybody, I remember just beating my chest because I was like, yeah, they didn't know what hit them. They didn't know what was coming. You talk about a good feeling and a good moment, and that led Taj to this season that he's had so far, throwing for 3,550 yards, 34 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and the worst stat I think we've got for Taj Boyd, far and away, more than the interceptions, 26 sacks this year. But that's what happens, I guess, when you're dropping back to throw the football as much as he is. Our rush of the year. Now, I got to preface this by saying the offensive play of the year is a rush, and so I didn't give it the rush of the year because I wanted to spread the wealth a little bit. My rush of the year was Sammy Watkins, that 53-yard touchdown run against Furman. Now, Sammy, obviously more known for his receiving ability, and this year a down year after the slow start, but needs only 73 more yards to surpass 2,000 yards for his career. But in that game against Furman, on that little sweep, as Sammy got the football and hit the hole, and I'm telling you what, it looked like he was shot out of a cannon. I wish I had the clip from that episode of TigerNet Talk because that's exactly what it reminded me of. Just a speedster and a guy who, oddly enough, at Florida State got a lot of carries. Against South Carolina, you didn't really see that. Sammy's touches were down. That continued to hurt Clemson. But for me, the rush of the year was seeing Sammy Watkins being Sammy Watkins again, and it made you feel good because you could see he still had that extra gear even without playing a couple of games, that being the first opportunity for him to be out on the field. Now, how about the catch of the year? There were a few, for sure, most of which belonged to DeAndre Hopkins. The one I'm going to go with, I think I've got to go with, going back to the Auburn game, there was a fade in the corner of the end zone where DeAndre Hopkins was interfered with and still pulled the ball in. It was a bit of a glimpse at what we were going to see down the road, but that catch still, being interfered with, snagging that football, bringing it in, and give Hopkins credit because it didn't stop there. Only 6 receiving yards away from breaking Sammy Watkins' record for yardage in a season that Watkins set last year. And also, Hopkins continually making touchdown catches in ball games over and over. 3 at Duke, you could pick them. Corey says Jerron Brown on 3rd down. Jerron definitely made a living. Let me say this about Jerron Brown. If I remember correctly, in my mind at these days and how much I follow and talk and do everything with Clemson football, I want to say, and the chat room will correct me, Jerron Brown dropped the pass that would have beaten Auburn in overtime. That's one of the last drops I remember for Jerron Brown in his career. Every once in a while he'll have one. But that's the last one that stuck with me, and I was like, oh, Jerron. Yeah, the ball hit you in the hands. But in that game, that opportunity slipped away on the plains down there at Auburn. Nobody corrected me in the chat room, so I must be right that was Jerron Brown. Because that was the one time I remember saying, come on, Jerron. After that, the kid's hands have been like super glue. I mean, they have caught everything that's come his way. And finally, our offensive play of the year. I've seen people talking about it already in the chat room. You got to go back, oddly enough, to game 1 against Auburn. Andre Ellington's 68-yard run, a thing of beauty. In that game, he had 25 carries for 228 yards, the best performance he had the entire season. And he put a couple of wonderful runs together in that ball game where he would put his hand down. But that 68-yard run, not only was it the best run of the year for the Clemson Tigers, you would be hard-pressed to find a better run in college football just based on what all happened on that play. Being spun around, putting his hand to the ground, cutting back across the field. The only thing that could have iced that, the only thing that could have made that a little bit nicer is if that had actually gone for a touchdown. All that work for Andre Ellington in that opening game against Auburn, and he gets in the end zone none, 0 times. But still, you talk about the offensive play of the year. For me, that had to be it. And give a lot of credit to Andre Ellington. He came back. He had a second consecutive 1,000-yard rushing season this year and showed a commitment to improving his game. You think back just a few years ago, I don't want to say he was a question mark coming into the season, but I think there were a lot of people concerned about Clemson at the running back spot. And AE lived up to those expectations that many people had for him coming out of high school, that he could be electric, and he was. We'll be back with our defensive plays of the year right after these messages. Stay with us, Tiger fans.
Everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981.
Do you suffer from a chronic case of the woohoo during football games? Do your Saturdays sound something a bit like this? Well, TigerNet Talk is out to fix that. If we can band together, we can change this reoccurring issue. With a simple, go Tigers, go, you can make a difference. Ban the woohoo. Do yourself a favor. And as always, go Tigers. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove.
Hate the thought of shopping? All that hassle and can't find what you're looking for anyway? We understand. Retail stores make it difficult. Instead, try www.edistooutdoors.com. Edisto Outdoors features performance apparel and gear engineered for performance, comfort, and style. EdistoOutdoors.com. You'll enjoy the shopping and you'll enjoy the products. Great products from people who care.
Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that.
Coach Ford, I wrote this song for you. I'm singing from my heart. There's something special in your style. I've known it from the start. Oh, listen up, we won't give up. We'll soon be number one. We'll be grinning from ear to ear when the football season's done.
Oh, yeah. Well, we won't be grinning from ear to ear when the football season's done. I don't think when they wrote that album, Ode to the Paws and Claws, I don't think because the internet didn't exist, they didn't realize about the dark times, the down times when you can't believe you've got to wait for college football season to come back around. It is. It is something else. I'm telling you, just the lull of the summer. And I guess back then when you finished the season with a win over a team like a Penn State or an Oklahoma in the Citrus Bowl, you win those games and everybody's smiling for the rest of the time. But when you haven't won a bowl game since 2009, when you haven't beat South Carolina in 4 straight attempts, frustration sets in. It's a long summer. It can seem like forever before you get back out on the field and get to see your friends at your tailgate or whatever. It just seems like it takes forever. But anyway, I'm glad you're here with us on TigerNet Talk. Let me tell you, hashtag TN Talk. Join us in the chat room on Spreecast. Typically Wednesday nights at 9. This week, though, coming up, we're going to be on the 27th. That's Thursday night at 9 o'clock because of the holidays. Want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Emails throughout the week, Clemson81@gmail.com. Phone lines are always open, 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. And if you go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com, there's a send voicemail feature right there on the website that you can click, and then you can leave us a voicemail anytime you want to, which is a pretty nice feature for you guys because you can listen to the podcast and still leave us a message and tell me what a bonehead I am. But with all that said, I do have my hotkeys up, and I got people in the chat room clamoring for some of the hotkeys, so we'll give them one here because it does fit what we're headed into.
I've been wanting to talk to you about something.
And that is my defensive plays of the year. These were much harder to find and identify. In fact, going through them, some of the time I was thinking, what play could that be? For example, I actually took hit of the year out because I don't really remember a Clemson player crushing anybody. And the only time that I recall anybody being crushed, it was Andre Ellington being hit by Swearinger. But I thought, I can't make that my hit of the year. The chat room will revolt. The listeners will revolt. So we threw out the hit of the year. We said the hit of the year is worthless. That's a stupid thing to calculate, Swan. Who cares about the hit of the year? For all you know, the hit of the year could still lead to a long touchdown run because we want them wrapping up. We want our guys playing fundamental defense. So we got rid of the hit of the year. I just threw it out. I can do that. When you produce the show, you make those decisions. I produce the show. I make that decision. My tackle of the year technically didn't end up being a tackle, though. To start things off, I want to go back to the game against Maryland. Corey Crawford. What a play he had. A little strip and fumble return for a touchdown in the first quarter against Maryland. Sean Petty had rushed the football. He fumbled it. Corey Crawford scoops it up at the Maryland 16. Crawford carried the ball into the end zone. That put the Tigers up 14-0. 12 seconds between plays for a touchdown. A Clemson record for the fastest, the shortest amount of time between touchdown plays. And for Corey Crawford, I would say his play of the year that he had. And for me, my tackle of the year. I'm going to bend the rules a little bit because technically, the ball carrier was, I guess, taken down, and Corey Crawford took the ball to the end zone. And I needed an exciting tackle, and that was the most exciting one I could come up with. Interception of the year, up 10-7. Just before the half, about 3:45 before the half against Virginia Tech. Jonathan Meeks, his second pick of the ball game. He returns 74 yards. The stadium is electrified at that point. The Tigers go up 17-7 and roll on against Virginia Tech. Oddly enough, against Virginia Tech, a team that gave Clemson so much trouble in the past with plays just like that. Interception returns, big momentum swinging plays. For Clemson, though, in this game, Jonathan Meeks' play was spectacular. And as much grief as I've given the secondary in that game against a very tall quarterback in Logan Thomas, Jonathan Meeks took one to the house, 74 yards. That was my interception of the year. And when I thought about the interception of the year, I was reminded of Bashaud Breeland's big interception last season, the one-armed interception that he had. And I just do want to add this one little nugget for you that Bashaud Breeland is not going to be participating in the bowl game. You know, he's had some injuries plaguing him this year. He's a guy from my neck of the woods. He's from down there in Allendale. And, of course, that's the same area where I'm from, and I hate that for him because obviously he is one of the better defensive backs we had. I know that he didn't go without criticism this season when he was on the field, but not having him and the lack of depth there in the secondary. We play the song We Too Deep, but in the secondary we clearly aren't. And with Bashaud Breeland out, that's a big blow to this Clemson Tigers secondary, not having him. But at least it's been a while since he's been involved, so it's not like it's something they're going to have to immediately adjust to. He's going to have surgery on his groin that's been hampering him the entire year. And, you know, he also had a little bit of that abdominal injury as well. My sack of the year, there were a number of sacks this year that I really thought about. But this one is more because, one, it basically sealed a ball game, and two, it gave you a flash forward to the future of what this kid could bring to the table. And that's going to be Vic Beasley's sack of Kyle Frazier in the opening game against Auburn. It basically shut things down, but with 10 seconds, I believe, remaining in the ball game, it happened, and you saw a glimpse for a minute. And I've said for a while, I really like the single-digit defensive lineman. I don't know why, I just do. I like seeing Barnes with the 6 on his back. I like seeing Beasley with the 3. I don't like seeing Clowney with the 7, but you know what? He does have a single digit. For some reason, those single-digit defensive linemen they do something for me. I don't know what it is. But Vic Beasley, right there in that moment, making a big play for Clemson. He would go on to make a number of big plays. You've seen his improvement in his footwork this offseason. I think if he puts on just a little bit more weight, he's got a real chance to be an impactful guy for Clemson. If the recruits land the way you want them to, maybe he's not a starter next year. But if they don't, if you miss on everybody on the defensive line that you're bringing in, I think Vic Beasley has a real chance to be a weapon for Clemson down the road because of what he brings from an athletic standpoint. I don't think you see that from a lot of players out there, especially on this team this season. But Vic Beasley, for me, that play at the end of the Auburn game, that was my sack of the year because I realized at that moment that maybe he was going to be good, and he turned out to be much better than I think many of us thought coming into the season. And finally, my defensive play of the year, everybody gives the credit to Spencer Shuey for this one, the safety against Georgia Tech. It's 38-31. Clemson needs a big play. Orwin Smith gets the ball. He gets tackled in the end zone. Clemson goes up 40-31 at that point. No surprise here. The momentum shifted. The Death Valley began rocking. The players, everybody had that edge, that swagger, whatever you want to call it, that we're looking for from this ball club. At that moment, you felt it. You felt like this team was showing up. They were showing something to America at that point. And I felt good about the direction of the defense at that point because a guy like Shuey was beginning to make his impact. And I know that at the grand scheme of things, 10-2 is an exciting year, but the way things went down at the end against South Carolina, it still leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. But that moment for me was the most exciting defensive play of the season because you realized you shut the door on a Georgia Tech team that consistently gave you trouble. You found a way to make a play against a run against Georgia Tech that gave you points on the board. Oddly enough, in that ball game, Clemson scored every way possible. In that, it was 47-31, the final score in that one. The Tigers scored 5 touchdowns, 3 field goals, kicked 5 extra points, had a 2-point conversion, and a safety. The first time Clemson has scored every way possible since 2007 against Virginia Tech in a loss. And in that game, Clemson managed to pull it off with only 23 points on the board. So, pretty unique stat there from the athletic department that I thought I'd give to you there as we kind of wrapped up the defensive plays of the year. I was trying to look here in the chat room to see if anybody else had another big play that they were reminded of from the defensive side of the ball, something that really made them, jump out of their chair, whatever it was, get up on their feet. So often we look at the stands and you're saying, come on, man, make a little racket. Get up off your feet. Do something to help this team. But those moments that we just listed were the biggest moments that I think we had this year from the defensive side of the football. We've got our final segment coming up. We're 49 minutes into the program. Thank you all for being here on TigerNet Talk. A little basketball. Yeah, I saw some good things, but mostly it was bad. That's being nice, I think. We'll be back. Stay with us. Don't leave us because we're talking basketball.
In my head, if I pointed it just we scoop the boot, dutycalls.com. When nobody else will do it, dutycalls.com. To make that dog poop go away, call or click for a free quote today.
When nature calls, we answer. To get a free quote for dog poop removal, go to dutycalls.com now.
DOODYCALLS. Dutycalls.com.
In the Midlands area, dial 1-800-DUTY-CALLS. They're number 1 and number 2. Enjoy the Clemson football season at Seasons by the Lake Restaurant. Tiger Tailgate on the Terrace at Seasons Restaurant will be held every Clemson football game day, rain or shine, home or away, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those day games and noon to midnight for the evening kickoffs. Enjoy a large screen TV, a Bloody Mary and mimosa bar, specialty drinks, and a great tailgate menu, all on the Seasons Terrace. For more information, call 656-7444. or visit their Facebook page, facebook.com/Seasons by the Lake. I hope to see you on the terrace. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Food Dog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.fooddogmedia.net. May the food be with you. Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that.
This is Clemson Tom, and you're listening to Clemson Sports Talk. So sit down and have you a cold one and listen to a true American.
I like driving down Clemson Boulevard.
Welcome into the program, or back I should say. You've been here with us, but now welcome into the dumpster fire that is Clemson Tiger basketball. No, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not the Clemson women's basketball team, and I'm going to try and figure out what's going on there. That you talk about train wreck, that's not looking good right now for Coach Atoro Umo Coleman. And I don't know. You look back, Jim Davis, the career he had at Clemson and the way things ended, and then a bad hire, and then going back to Coleman, who's proven to be an excellent recruiter, but they've got players leaving. They've got issues everywhere. And while many of you would say, it's women's basketball, no big deal, look, the days when Coleman was on the team, and Umo, I guess she was known as back then, and Amy Guerin, that girl squad, they were good. Laura Cottrell, they were a very good and entertaining team to watch. Now, not so much. And it's sad to see Dory Kidd. It's sad to see how quickly that program really declined. David says he's thinking about getting his own show. I don't blame you, David. That's exactly what we need. The world needs a little more Clemson sports talk. You can never go wrong with a little more. Let's see, though. David does say that the two pass interference calls on the third quarter that kept Clemson off the field were the difference in the USC game. Very questionable calls also. There were some opportunities maybe, though, that some calls earlier in the game could have gone the other way, too. I hate to get into, was this, was that. The call was the call. The thing was you still have to get off the field. Clemson didn't do it. They didn't. We can go all day about the referees, but at the end of the day, you got to make the plays to get off the field. Clemson didn't do it. You get interferences because you put yourself in bad situations. David's show kicks off 3 a.m., folks. Tune in. He'll have all kind of listeners in Hawaii and the Philippines. That'll be his biggest markets, the Philippines. And Corey in the chat room says he's pretty sure that Boyd is coming back next year, but who will be the backup? Chad Kelly came in and said, look, I'm not here to be the backup. I'm here to play. And we were fortunate, I think, this year that nothing happened to Taj Boyd to put us in a circumstance where Chad Kelly would need to play. Did get a chance, though. You guys know when I start talking about the quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson's the kid that I'm really liking. Got a chance to watch some of his state championship game. And, this is the problem you have with great players out there, is that they're playing against lesser talent. There was a defender on his team, though. I forget the kid's name, who was really good. I think he's going to play at Western Carolina. He was outstanding. But Watson definitely showed me something. And he's a lot better than a lot of guys out there on the field. But the future looks bright at the quarterback spot for Clemson as long as we keep Chad Morris around. I think that's going to be a big deal with Watson. And speaking of Chad Morris, real quick, the show comes out on Wednesday. Things don't get posted until Thursday or Friday, depending on when I get to write everything that I need to and put everything into the show notes. And there was a big debate about whether I was like Debbie Downer. Like, you guys come here, I'm not. I try not to pump a whole lot of sunshine, but I also try to give a realistic perspective of things. And my statement was basically in the write-up was that, one, would Texas A&M be willing to pay Chad Morris? Not are they are, he's leaving. But would they? Would they be willing? Fair question. Got a lot of heat for it. And basically, I really didn't understand why everybody went, I don't want to say so negative on it, but I really did feel like we got a lot of flack, or at least I did, for just what I wrote, the matter of time. And I think it is a matter of time before Chad Morris leaves Clemson or becomes a head coach. It's a matter of time. Maybe he's the head coach at Clemson, but it definitely, he's not going to be an offensive coordinator his whole life. I think we know that. Fair statement to make. It is an absolutely fair statement to make. I like the heat, though. I'll take it. You were talking about us. That's what we want you to do. And I do thank everybody who's been here with us this evening. But finally, we'll wrap it up. Clemson Tiger basketball losing to I almost want to say the College of Charleston all the time. And it would be just as bad as losing to College of Charleston. Losing to Coastal Carolina, again, for a second year in a row. Last season, it was a tip-in at the buzzer to beat the Tigers. This year, it was from the beginning to the end, beating you like a drum. Devin Booker had a pretty good game for Clemson, scoring 16 points. Milton Jennings was awful from the field, going 2 of 12. A disappointing night for Milton Jennings. Again, I've said it here on the show. Was it the right move to bring him back? That's for Brad Brownell and you to decide when you watch the team. I told you I would have kicked him off of the ball club the day he got arrested. That would have been it for Milton Jennings. KJ McDaniels, who has shown some real strides this year, didn't play his best ball game. I was disappointed in Filer's play. I also was frustrated a little bit with the fact that a guy like Bernard Sullivan hasn't come on a little bit better than he's playing right now. I think that he has the tools to be a good player and somebody who should be able to spell a guy like Devin Booker and Milton Jennings, but when he's in the game, he often looks out of sync. I said there was a bright side. Being 6-4, losing 2 straight to Coastal, that's not the bright side. The bright side for me is what we've seen from Roper in these past couple of ball games. I mean, he does look confident. He's shooting the ball more often. He's a young kid. He's developing his game. I don't know that he's going to be outstanding this year, but we've clearly got the cupboard very bare for the men's team. And when your performers, or at least your leaders like Milton Jennings, the guys who are seniors, don't perform very well, I don't know how you can expect the young guys to step up. But it seems like Roper is beginning to feel his way into the rhythm of the offense. I really thought that Filer would become the guy, Adonis Filer. I really thought he would become the young freshman that we see step up. But instead, right now, Jordan Roper's looking pretty good to me. His confidence is growing, but the team losing 69-46 to Coastal Carolina. That is inexcusable. Corey says, did we play better with Jennings on the bench? I'll be honest, Corey, we played better with Jennings on the bench an awful lot. And that's where I'll leave it this week. Next week, the 27th, Thursday night, 9 o'clock, we'll do it right here, TigerNet Talk. Thank you all for being with us. And as always, till next time, y'all take care now. And go Tigers!